has actually married 2 White House staffers when he was vice president in the White House. In the White House. He's done that. So that's what we're dealing with. That and so many other issues. So simply because it happens in Europe, and the Europeans, in my view, are probably lost on this. And you don't have European politicians that are strong, able, and have the passion and conviction to stand up and say, in the name of God, in the name of... And these anomalies and these abominable types of behavior, that doesn't mean to say that their position is right. What it tells you is that the society has deteriorated to such a point that there's a point of no return. Now, we haven't got there yet, and by God's grace, we won't get there. And right now in America, there's a struggle. There are 2 camps. There are 2 schools of thought. There are 2 ideologies conflicting and clashing. One, and they're both fighting for the soul of America and the destiny of America and the destiny of the world. One, liberal, left-wing, globalized, or people with a global view who believe that anything is possible, and in the name of Obama, they'll say, yes, we can do anything we like. And they don't really have a place for God in terms of restraint and decency, as far as I'm concerned. But the other side puts God before anything else and says, listen, we can do as we please, but at the same time, we have to be guided by the values under which America was founded, the founding fathers, Christian, solid Christian values. The family is important. God is important. Fairness and equity is important. The purity of the soul is important. And accountability to the word of God is important. That's what the other side stands for. And I believe that those are where my values stand as well. So these are just some of the reasons why I stand with Trump, and some of the reasons why I believe in him. And of course, this is the reason why, even though the whole world may have gone astray in terms of these views or these values, I certainly wouldn't do so. Even if I'm the only one in this country speaking like this, it doesn't matter. It means nothing to me. I'll continue to do it as long as I'm guided by God.
Because why you said part of some other reasons you said you support Trump is the fact that, I mean, when it comes to racism, the economy, but most people have the opinion that when it comes to racism, they view Trump as a white supremacist. And during his campaign, he had options to speak about it on 2 occasions. One occasion I watched where the interviewer actually asked him that, okay, are you white supremacist? He neither answered yes or no. There was another interview that surfaced where they asked him, does he know about the QAnon and what is his hopes? What does he think about them? And he should actually just disengage from them. He also sat on the fence. On those crucial times, one would have actually thought that an incumbent would actually take a stand or a position.
No time. There was no time in any interview anywhere that Trump has ever granted in which he said that he is a white supremacist. During this,
he never answered. He didn't answer the question. Yeah.
The issue is, you said earlier that he had said that he was asked whether he was a white supremacist, he never said he was. What happened in those interviews was this: there was a march by some white supremacists who didn't do the right thing and misbehaved and were doing Nazi salutes, and there was some violence and so on and so forth. I can't remember which town it was. And he was asked whether he would condemn them. And what he said, rightly in my view, was that there are bad people on both sides. 2 conflicting groups fighting one another and threatening one another and indulging in violence. And he was saying there are bad people on both sides, which I think is a fair thing to say. Now, you don't judge him by what the clips that CNN and all the other international TV networks and the newspapers write. Judge him by his actions. I repeat to you, he has done more for the Black community in America than any other president before him, apart from maybe Abraham Lincoln. Go and check the record. And the problem here is this: most people, particularly in this part of the world, do not do the research. They sit in front of CNN, they accept everything CNN tells them. CNN has been partisan and biased from day one for the last 4 years, attacking this man, insulting this man, trying to pull him down, accuse him of being a spy, for Russia, accuse him of that Russia influenced the elections, accuse him of so many things. And all these things, none of it, had any substance. And now they say he's a white supremacist. Well, it's interesting that a white supremacist should attract more votes from the Black community than any other in the history of America. Go and check it in this last election. And that is the reality of it. People on the ground know. Now, he may be introducing policies that may affect some people more than others in terms of wanting to keep his country for his people and make his country great again. I don't see that there's anything wrong with that. I don't see there's anything wrong with that. I would do the same if I was president of Nigeria. I'd build walls, keep people out from coming in.
That was what. Sorry, because that was what I wanted to ask you. I mean, if you say you are pro-Black, I was seeing some of the things that had shown up during his strict immigration laws, where children are detached from their parents.
Those are mainly South American. Now we're jumping to the issue of immigration in terms of building. People coming in from outside, and that was clearly, simply an immigration policy, which he had enunciated before he was elected. And he said that his position is strong on immigration. He didn't want people coming in. He changed the laws. And of course, there are things that happen which are difficult to understand, difficult to accept. It's not perfect. He's not infallible. But the broader policy for me makes a lot of sense, which is that we don't want people coming here illegally. We want them legally and lawfully. If we had a policy like that in Nigeria, we wouldn't have people, foreign Fulanis, coming into our borders all over, throughout the north to come and kill our people in Katsina and Zamfara and kill our people in Sokoto. If we had a wall and if we had a good immigration policy and we protected our borders, we wouldn't have that problem. Well, he sees it as a real problem for America, and it was a problem for America, and he sought to fix that problem. Now, it really doesn't matter what you and I think. What matters is that the overwhelming majority of Americans at that time in 2016 voted for him to do precisely that. And he did it. He implemented it. Now, another election has come. There's been a vote. We will know what the outcome will be eventually, because I'm not convinced about what they've said so far, what CNN is telling us. Okay? And at the end of it all, we'll know whether that policy was espoused and embraced by the American people the way it was in 2016. But the fact remains that he has had more votes this time round than even in 2016. And this is something nobody can take from him, no matter how you label him, no matter what you call him, no matter what you say about him.
But we also have it that, when it comes to popular votes, Biden has about 4 million. And when it comes to the electoral college, Biden has surpassed the required numbers.
Yeah, fair enough. That's what they've reported to you, and that's what we've been told. But you know very well there are a lot of issues around that. And this is why the whole world is waiting to see what the outcome is. The fact remains that there are very serious allegations about unlawful votes, irregularities in the whole process, fraud, voter suppression, and so on and so forth. And I think these are legitimate questions that need to be answered. The way in which everything suddenly turned at the last minute as a consequence of the mail-in vote system, which right from the outset, everybody had been told is a very, very porous system. And the way in which the international TV networks declared, and all the media, your colleagues in the international world, declared Biden as winner the minute he got to 270, going against all convention, against all norms. You don't declare him a winner until the other side concedes. And until the other side concedes, you can't say he's a winner. You know why? Because the process has only just started. It is when you get, because the next point is on December the 12th, when the electors, I don't know how, your viewers may not be that familiar with the American system, but you have an election on a particular day.
Yes, the electoral.
I think there are about 538 votes. It's an electoral college system. So if you win in state A, you get all the votes from that state.
Yeah.
Whoever gets to 270 first emerges as president. That is how it's always been. However, it doesn't begin and end there. The first thing that has to happen is that the person that has been defeated traditionally concedes defeat. As long as he feels that everything has gone okay, there's no problem, there's no issue, I concede. And then you begin to congratulate the winner. And the rest is just a formality. You wait until December the 12th, I believe it is. The electors from each of the states gather together and have a formal meeting in which they will formally present the votes they have from each of their states at that meeting. And they'll now declare. And once that is all agreed upon, because even at that point, it can be disputed. But once that is all agreed upon, then you have another step, which is a few days later in January. I believe it's January the 6th or January the 12th or something like that. It's January the 6th. You now go to Washington. All the electors go to Washington. They meet in Congress at 1 o'clock on January the 12th. They will now, January the 12th, yes, January the 6th, sorry. 1 o'clock on January the 6th, they will now meet in Congress and present the position to Congress. And that is where it's approved. And once it's approved, it is at that point that you will now say, okay, inauguration will take place on January the 20th. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about that process. 9 times out of 10, that's how it works, because elections are usually very smooth. They're not contested. Everything goes okay there. So at the first instance, you usually get somebody hitting 270 and the other person congratulating him, and there are no issues. However, it doesn't always work like that. In 2000, the year 2000, when there was an election between Gore and George Bush Jr., they went to the polls. Gore got 271. He hit, he crossed the 270 mark. I believe that George W. was at something like 236 or something. He was behind him. And they declared, or rather, it was projected. That's the word to use. It was projected that Gore had won the election. But Bush contested that. He contested it. And he went to court. They struggled. It went to the Electoral College. They met, like I said, on December the 12th. It was disputed. The matter went to court. And by the time it was all over, and I remember watching that on television. I was in Accra at the time. I remember watching it. And I was fascinated by what was going on, because by the time it got to Congress, Gore himself had conceded that even though he appeared to have the numbers, he didn't have the legitimacy that he needed. And as people were coming forward to say, such and such a state gave him these, he said, no, I cannot accept those votes. And that's how it all ended. Because, Gore was vice president at the time, if I remember correctly. But anyway, he was a candidate, and he rejected the votes. And consequently, George W. Bush was sworn in on January the 20th, 2001. So that's what happened at that time. Now, this time, let's look at what happened this time. Again, something suddenly happened, and all of a sudden, almost 700,000 votes through the mail-in system ended up in Biden's pocket after Trump was doing so well, and all of Trump's votes suddenly stopped. And he has alleged, right or wrongly, that there have been massive irregularities and so many other things, and there's a big fraud going on. He has alleged that, and he has refused to concede and congratulate his opponent, and he said he's going to contest the election, perfectly within his rights to do that. And the truth is that nobody, not CNN, not BBC, not Al Jazeera, not Punch newspaper, not The Guardian, nobody at all, nobody has the right to declare Biden as the winner of that election. They can say it, but it doesn't mean it has any power or authority, because the legitimate authorities that have the right to do that is the Electoral College itself. And that has not come up yet. And that has not been done yet because the election has been disputed and the person who purportedly lost has contested it. So that will not happen until December the 12th, when they meet. Then we'll now know what's going to happen. Now, outside of that, the allegations that have been made, they've gone to court to go and prove those allegations, which means ultimately this matter will be determined through the court system. It'll go all the way to the Supreme Court. And they will know whether or not the lawful votes were cast or whether the votes that Biden is relying on are unlawful. And I think that's a legitimate process. That's what you... If in that particular state, Biden now loses votes and they're taken away, either because there was fraud discovered or the people that were meant to be watching the ballot counting by ballot boxes by Republican, by Trump's representatives were not allowed in, or for whatever reason, they're deducted, it may mean that Biden ends up losing that particular state in terms of the electoral. So all the votes from that electoral college automatically go to Trump. Will be projected. The best that anybody can do now is to project somebody as winner. That's what they should have been saying. Biden has been projected as the winner. There are issues. Trump has refused to accept it. He's going to court, civil court. And then what makes it even more complicated now and dangerous for Biden is the fact that a criminal investigation has just been launched by the American Justice Department into the whole thing and into the activities of the election. So nobody has the right to declare him winner at this point. They can only project it, but it is yet to be determined. It has to be confirmed by the courts. It has to be confirmed by the Electoral College. It has to be confirmed by Congress. And it's only after that that you can say you have a winner. So I think that this race is still very much on, and that's just the reality of the situation.
And looking at the numbers, the figures that are out there, and because, I mean, from the beginning of this election, Donald Trump had come out to cry wolf, saying that it's fraud.
Each of the states are very closely contested, even by the figures there now. You look at them, each of the states. So all you have to do is knock off a few in one or two states, and that's it. Biden is dinner. He's toast, as they say. So it's important that they count these. Now, look, I'm not an American, but like I said, what happens there impacts on us dramatically. It impacts on our worldview, it impacts on the world. But most importantly, we're talking about the sanctity of the electoral process. If the Americans can do this sort of nonsense and get away with it to their own people, what right will anybody else have in the rest of the world to say that things must be done right? It's very important to all of us that this thing is done well. Now, the reason why I'm very, very suspicious of Biden and the Democratic Party is this, and I'll bring this closer to Nigeria.
Okay.
In 2015, we had an election here. And I happened to be spokesman of the presidential campaign team for President Goodluck Jonathan, a man that I have immense respect for, a courageous man, and a man that I have deep affection for. And I was the spokesman of his campaign organization, and I know what happened at that time when it came to the fraud and the electoral malpractices of the